The day had been long, and Officer Greg Towers was ready to call it a night. He parked his cruiser in the gravel lot of Mel's Diner, savoring the last few moments of his shift. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the quiet street, and the rhythmic hum of cicadas was a welcome contrast to the chaos of his earlier calls. A fender bender, a shoplifting case, and one particularly stubborn cat stuck in a tree. Greg sighed, adjusting his hat and leaning back in his seat. The radio crackled softly, but no urgent calls interrupted the peace. He reached for his coffee, now cold but still comforting, and let his mind drift to what waited for him at home. Leftovers from Sunday's pot roast, a dog that would need walking, and maybe, if he wasn't too tired, an episode of that crime drama everyone at the station had been raving about. Then it happened. A blur of sleek, polished silver zipped past him so fast it almost didn't register. The sound it made, or rather the lack of it, was what caught his attention. It wasn't the roar of a muscle car or the rumble of a motorcycle. It was an eerie electric hum, almost like the whisper of a storm approaching. "What the?" Greg muttered, straightening in his seat. He glanced at his radar gun, still perched on the dash. The number flashed, 68 in a 40. Reflexes honed by years on the job kicked in. He tossed the coffee aside and flipped on his lights, the red and blue strobing to life as he pulled out of the lot. Gravel sprayed behind him as he hit the gas. The Tesla was already several car lengths ahead, its smooth, aerodynamic frame slicing through the fading daylight. Greg tightened his grip on the wheel, adrenaline sharpening his focus. As he followed the speeding car, the gravity of the situation sank in. This wasn't just another routine traffic stop. The driver's reckless speed endangered everyone on the road. After a few tense moments, the Tesla slowed and pulled over to the side of the road. Greg stopped a safe distance behind, the cruiser's lights still flashing. Exiting his vehicle, Greg approached the Tesla with caution. The window rolled down smoothly, revealing none other than Elon Musk. For a brief moment, Greg's professionalism wavered. It wasn't every day he encountered one of the world's most famous tech moguls. Musk's expression was calm but slightly amused. "Evening, officer," he said with a faint smile. Greg quickly recovered. "License and registration, please," he said, his tone firm but polite. Musk obliged, retrieving the documents from the glove compartment. Meanwhile, Greg's gaze flicked to the sleek interior of the car. It was more like a spaceship than a vehicle. Wanting to do his job thoroughly, Greg ordered Musk to open the trunk. He had no idea he was being recorded. Musk complied without protest, popping the trunk to reveal nothing out of the ordinary. The tension eased slightly, but Greg remained professional. After issuing a citation and delivering a brief lecture on the importance of obeying speed limits, he let Musk go on his way. As Greg returned to his cruiser, he couldn't help but chuckle. It was a story he'd probably tell for years to come, the night he pulled over Elon Musk. But for now, there were still a few minutes left in his shift, and the promise of pot roast and a loyal dog waiting at home kept him grounded. The streets grew quiet once more, and Greg resumed his patrol, the adrenaline of the chase slowly giving way to the calm of the night. Greg's jaw tightened as the cruiser's engine roared, struggling to close the distance. "Driver of the silver Tesla," he said into his PA system, his voice firm. "Pull over immediately." There was no response. The car stayed its course, unbothered by the flashing lights or the siren wailing through the evening air. Great, Greg thought. One of those. He'd dealt with his fair share of entitled speedsters, some wealthy, some drunk, some just plain arrogant. Whoever was behind the wheel of this Tesla wasn't giving him an easy end to his shift. Ahead, the Tesla veered slightly, passing an older couple in a sedan and causing them to swerve cautiously to the side. Greg's heart rate spiked. Reckless driving. Perfect. He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14, he said, keeping his eyes on the Tesla. "Pursuing a silver Tesla Model S heading east on Pine Grove, approximately 70 in a 40. Driver failing to yield. Plate number. Stand by." He squinted, trying to catch the digits on the license plate as the Tesla's regenerative braking system seemed to kick in. But instead of stopping at a red light ahead, the car made a sharp turn onto Birch Street. "You've got to be kidding me," Greg muttered, cursing under his breath as he yanked the wheel to follow. Birch was narrower, lined with parked cars and a few pedestrians who froze in place as the pursuit sped past. The cruiser's engine growled, echoing through the tight street, but the Tesla remained eerily silent. It didn't roar or rumble. It simply moved, smooth, precise, and maddeningly quick. Greg's adrenaline surged as the gap between them began to close. He could see it now, the sleek body of the Tesla gleaming under the streetlights. The tinted windows gave no hint of the driver's identity, but his gut told him this was someone important enough to think they could outrun him. "Dispatch," he called again, his voice clipped. "Still in pursuit, speed holding at 65. Suspect appears to be slowing down. Stand by." Ahead, the Tesla finally seemed to acknowledge his presence. It signaled, of all things, and began pulling over to the side of the road. Greg's brow furrowed. That's unexpected. Most people in a chase either panicked or bolted. This one acted as if it was just another Sunday drive. He parked a safe distance behind the Tesla, flipping off his siren but leaving the lights on. For a moment, Greg stayed in his seat, eyes fixed on the vehicle. The adrenaline hadn't worn off, and his instincts told him to be cautious. Reaching for his flashlight, he stepped out of the cruiser, the cool night air hitting him as he approached the silent, sleek machine. The pursuit had ended, but Greg's sense of unease remained as he prepared to confront the enigmatic driver of the Tesla. Greg's boots crunched against the pavement, the weight of his badge feeling heavier with every step toward the sleek Tesla. Its silent hum, or whatever passed for an engine in these electric marvels, was barely audible, its stillness unnerving. Under the streetlights, the car gleamed like a predator lying in wait, its presence almost taunting. Greg's heartbeat quickened. Something about this didn't sit right. As he reached the driver's side window, he tapped on the glass, his flashlight beam slicing through the tinted pane. With a soft whir, the window began to lower, revealing the man behind the wheel. Greg's breath caught as the name escaped his lips unbidden. Elon Musk. The man, famed entrepreneur and tech mogul, smiled politely. "Evening, officer." Musk's tone was calm, his demeanor unflappable. Greg blinked, trying to process the ordinary traffic stop that had suddenly turned extraordinary. Elon Musk, the Tesla guy, the SpaceX guy. The man who sat before him appeared as though this were just another mundane moment in his day. Greg's initial excitement gave way to unease. He'd seen it before. The endless news cycles that dissected every action of officers encountering high-profile individuals. One misstep, and his career could unravel in the blink of an eye. But letting Musk off the hook wasn't an option. The law was clear, and reckless speeding couldn't go unchecked, no matter who was behind the wheel. Clearing his throat, Greg forced his voice to remain steady. "Mr. Musk, I'm going to need to see your driver's license and registration, please." "Of course," Musk replied smoothly. His movements were deliberate as he leaned over to open the glove compartment. Every motion seemed calculated, as though he were acutely aware of Greg's scrutiny. From the compartment, Musk retrieved a small leather folder and handed it over without hesitation. "Here you go, officer," Musk said, his tone devoid of concern. Greg accepted the documents with a curt nod, his pulse quickening as he examined them. "Thank you. Sit tight for me," Greg managed, stepping back toward his cruiser. Each step felt heavier than the last as Greg returned to his vehicle, Musk's gaze seemingly fixed on him. Sliding into the driver's seat, Greg let out a slow breath. The weight of the situation bore down on him, the surreal encounter already seared into his memory. He knew this was far from over. Greg's fingers hovered over the keyboard as he keyed in the details from Musk's license. For a brief moment, he hesitated before pressing enter. The database loaded slowly, the spinning circle on the screen mocking his nerves. He glanced at the rearview mirror. Musk's Tesla remained perfectly still, its sleek design looking more like something out of a sci-fi movie than a vehicle on Birch Street. The soft glow of the taillights gave it an ethereal presence. Greg's thoughts spiraled. What if he's recording me? The idea twisted his stomach. When the database finally loaded, Greg scanned the information. Everything was clean. No outstanding warrants, no prior violations. Musk's record was as spotless as his car. Leaning back, Greg ran a hand down his face, his composure slipping. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady himself. Okay, think. What's the play here? Opening his eyes, he stared at the paperwork. The name Elon Musk jumped off the license as if written in bold letters. Excitement wrestled with a cold undercurrent of doubt. What if I mess this up? Too aggressive. Too lenient. Greg's heart raced as he grabbed the paperwork and opened the door. Time to face the music. Musk's calm demeanor lingered in his mind, making this encounter feel surreal. As he approached the Tesla with the license and registration in hand, he cleared his throat, forcing himself to focus. Mr. Musk, Greg began, keeping his voice professional. Everything checks out here. However, you were clocked at 60 in a 40-mile-per-hour zone and failed to stop the first time I asked. That's reckless driving in a residential area. Musk nodded, his expression calm, as if he'd expected this. Understood, officer. Greg glanced at the sleek car again, its polished surface gleaming under the streetlights. He'd made up his mind. Stick to the script. Issue a warning or a ticket and move on. This didn't have to be a spectacle. The longer he delayed, the worse it would look. Sliding back into the cruiser earlier, Greg had struggled with the weight of the moment. But now, standing before Musk's Tesla, he resolved to finish this by the book, leaving no room for second-guessing or sensational headlines. Greg couldn't deny it. The Tesla was a marvel of engineering, quiet, powerful, and undeniably fast. Yet a car like this had no business speeding through small-town streets. Just as he reached into his pocket for his notepad to write the ticket, a faint but unmistakable thump broke through the quiet night air. It was low and muffled, but distinct enough to make Greg freeze, his pen hovering over the notepad. He glanced at Musk, whose expression remained unchanged. "Did you hear that?" Greg asked, tilting his head slightly. "Hear what?" Musk's voice was casual, almost disinterested. Before Greg could respond, another thump echoed, louder this time, coming from the rear of the car. His instincts, honed by years on the force, kicked in. His posture stiffened and his eyes narrowed. "Stay here," Greg ordered, his voice firmer now. Musk nodded, his calm demeanor unwavering as Greg walked toward the back of the Tesla. The car's eerie silence made the moment feel surreal, as if it were holding its breath. The streetlights cast long shadows over the trunk, deepening the already dark recesses. Greg stood there for a moment, listening. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the Tesla's systems. Leaning closer, his ear almost brushed the edge of the trunk. Then it came again, a thump, followed by what sounded like a soft shuffling noise. Straightening, Greg's heartbeat accelerated, and his mind raced through the possibilities. An animal sneaking into the trunk? Unlikely. Tesla trunks didn't just pop open like older models. Something loose inside? Or something worse? The thought made his stomach tighten. Greg returned to the driver's side, his hand now resting lightly on his holstered sidearm. Musk watched him, his expression neutral but watchful. "Mr. Musk," Greg began carefully, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." For the first time, Musk's calm veneer cracked. A slight raise of his brow, a pause before he spoke. "Is there a problem, officer?" "There might be," Greg replied. "Please step out of the car." Musk sighed lightly as though inconvenienced, but complied. He opened the door and stepped out, his movements measured. Taller than Greg expected, Musk carried an oddly commanding presence, even in a simple jacket and jeans. Greg gestured toward the trunk. "I need you to open it." Musk's brow furrowed slightly as he crossed his arms. "The trunk?" "Yes, sir," Greg said, his tone firm but calm. "I heard something back there. I need to check it out." Musk hesitated, glancing at the trunk and then back at Greg. The calm smile returned, though it felt more forced this time. "It's just cargo, nothing illegal." Greg's grip on the flashlight tightened as he spoke. "Then you won't mind opening it." The tension in the air was palpable. Across the street, a group of teenagers had gathered, their phones clearly capturing every second of the interaction. Musk studied Greg for a moment, as if weighing his options, before giving a small nod. "All right, officer, but I'm telling you, it's just equipment." He moved to the back of the Tesla, Greg following closely behind. Musk pressed a button on his key fob, and the trunk began to open with a soft mechanical whir. Greg's breath hitched, his flashlight beam cutting through the encroaching darkness as the lid lifted higher. Inside, shadows seemed to shift, and for a split second, Greg thought he saw movement. The trunk fully opened, and Greg instinctively leaned forward, his flashlight illuminating the space. His muscles tensed, ready for anything. But what he saw stopped him cold. Nestled inside the trunk was a pile of neatly packed boxes with bright, colorful labels. Each box bore a logo Greg instantly recognized: Hope Tech Initiative, the charitable organization often partnered with Musk's companies. The boxes were stacked carefully, almost reverently, and each one was marked with the words Emergency Relief Supplies. Tucked into the corner among the boxes was a small carrier cage. Inside, a scruffy, slightly nervous-looking dog sat, its wide eyes reflecting the beam of Greg's flashlight. The source of the mysterious thump was now obvious. The dog must have shifted in the cage, causing the sound. Greg blinked, struggling to process the sight. He slowly lowered the flashlight and glanced at Musk, who stood with his hands casually in his pockets. "It's asked," Musk said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was a faint warmth to it. "I found him wandering near one of our facilities a few days ago. He's a little skittish, but I couldn't leave him there. Figured I'd drop him off at a shelter on my way." Greg looked back at the dog, whose hesitant wag of the tail was just barely visible through the mesh of the carrier. "And the supplies?" Greg asked, trying to catch up. Musk gestured to the boxes. "They're for a relief drive upstate. There's been some flooding, and people need essentials. Food, blankets, solar-powered chargers, the usual stuff. I was running late, so I might have pushed the speed limit a bit." A flush of embarrassment crept up Greg's neck. Here he was, imagining something shady or dangerous, only to find himself face to face with an act of pure generosity. Clearing his throat, he straightened up. "Mr. Musk," he began, his tone shifting to one of respect and professionalism. Greg took a deep breath, his expression firm but understanding. "I appreciate what you're doing, but speeding like that, especially through residential areas, is dangerous. You could have hurt someone." Musk nodded, his expression sincere. "You're right. No excuse for it. I'll make sure to keep it under control." There was a moment of hesitation before Greg stepped back. "I'll let you off with a warning this time. Just slow down, all right?" "Will do, officer," Musk replied, offering a small, genuine smile. As Greg walked back to his cruiser, he couldn't help but glance over his shoulder. The sight of the little dog peeking out from the cage, paired with the stack of relief supplies, stuck with him. He'd started this stop full of nerves and doubt, but as he sat back in his car and watched the Tesla drive off at a reasonable pace, he felt something entirely different, a quiet sense of respect. That evening, Greg discovered that a video of him apprehending Musk had gone viral. The revelation shocked him. He had no idea he was being recorded. The story took another unexpected turn when Musk himself shared the clip on social media. In the now famous footage, Greg was seen conducting a routine traffic stop after catching the tech mogul speeding in a residential area. Musk retweeted the video with the caption, "Caught speeding, fair and square. Officer Towers handled it with professionalism and respect. A great example of what community policing should look like. And yes, I'll watch my speed next time." The retweet sent the video into overdrive, garnering millions of views within hours. Social media users praised both Musk for his humility and Greg for his calm, professional demeanor. Local news outlets celebrated the officer, highlighting his firm but respectful approach to law enforcement. Officer Towers showed that even in high-pressure situations involving high-profile individuals, integrity and professionalism matter most, one reporter noted. Greg, initially hesitant about the stop, became a local hero overnight, gaining recognition for embodying the best of community policing. The video closed with a narrator asking viewers, "What would you do if you saw Elon Musk speeding? And what are your views on how the police should handle celebrity cases?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.